You know, when this movie came out, I almost had a crisis. Being a DC fan at the time, especially over Marvel, all things considered, like, don't get me wrong, Spider-Man is probably my favorite superhero, and I really appreciate what the MCU has done and all the history I have with the cartoons, but I've always just preferred DC cartoons, DC characters, DC films up until the DCEU. And to be quite honest with you, this film is probably the epitome of all of DC's problems, the interactions with Warner Bros, having inept directors who don't understand the characters, and of course, overall just making bad decisions. Like I said, this film, it's the epitome of everything wrong with DC because it has all of those things, and the bad decisions are just rampant in this entire film, to the point where, in all honesty, I started to think that this film was made for people who make it their entire personality that they're, you know, a misfit, a weirdo, an outcast, just because of how odd this film is presented. Considering the stars in this movie, considering the budget behind it, you would think that this movie would have way more effort on the aspect of its filmmaking, its script, its editing, even how it handles its soundtrack and its score. But no, everything about this film is so incredibly amateurish. It feels like a slightly better produced CW episode of Arrow or Flash, and I'm not even exaggerating. Hell, even those shows, especially Flash, do a much better job presenting the characters that are presented here. All the issues about this movie can be immediately noticed when you hear the licensed soundtrack. The movie starts with damn near 4 or 5 tracks at the beginning that don't fit the vibe of the scene that they're being presented in. Or they're just so incredibly cliche that you've heard this song with this scene before. My favorite is Super Freak for some reason when they play that. And another aspect of this movie that is just so odd is the editing. The editing for this movie really doesn't make sense. It comes off as idiotic and repetitive. There are so many decisions that are made when it comes to the structure of this film. You ask yourself, why did they have to convolute the plot like this? Why did they convolute the structure of the story and the presentation of the characters in so many head-scratching ways that you just kind of give up on trying to piece together what's going on and sticking with the story? But you realize the film itself is laced with so much glitz and glam because it's trying to distract you from the fact that this story makes no sense. The characters have no real motivation for any of the actions that they're committing other than the bomb in the neck thing, sure, but by the end of the movie, that bomb in the neck novelty wears off because no one except one character is actually killed off with that aspect. It's one of the things that I have to give credit for its soft reboot / sequel, The Suicide Squad, because you introduced a whole cast and myriad of characters that have the ability to get their heads blown off. The whole point of the Suicide Squad movie is to have those bits and pieces of filler characters that can be killed off that way, so we're seeing that Waller's threats, Flag's threats aren't just empty. But unfortunately, outside of the best character in the movie, Slipknot, all of those threats from Flag and Waller are completely thin. But like I was saying, let's just go through the movie as as it went along. That's at least how I took my notes this time, similar to how I did Morbius. And to be honest with you, yeah, the movie should have just started at Amanda Waller walking into the restaurant and then showing the title card, because for some reason Harley Quinn and Deadshot get these weird pre-intros for some reason, only for them to be reintroduced 5 minutes later by Amanda Waller. And it's just we already did this. They're clearly the main characters, so I get that they're gonna have to have like a little bit of extra focus, but to be honest with you, Deadshot is honestly just a slightly scummier version of Will Smith. Like, for real, let's be honest, Will Smith is one of my favorite actors. He's been one of my favorite actors pretty much my entire life. I loved Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I love Men in Black, I love I Am Legend, I love even Hitch. Hitch is, hey man, you already saw in that last video, if you've seen it, Hitch is one of my favorite movies from 2005. And here, and pretty much on all of those movies, Will Smith does a really good job at just playing a slightly different version of himself. This is a critique I've given Will Smith for years, and don't get me wrong, I still think Will Smith is a good performer and he's always entertaining, but in majority of his films outside of a couple, he's really just playing himself with a slightly different edge to it. And here it's just like a slightly scummier Will Smith. Nothing really amazing, but he's definitely one of the more entertaining parts of the film. He has his moments for sure. Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn is kind of weak sauce here. I remember being excited when I saw a couple of the trailers and heard her accent, saw her costume, and I had a huge crush on Margot Robbie at the time. To be quite honest with you, she comes off more like a Harley Quinn cosplay rather than an actress portraying their own variation of Harley Quinn, if that makes sense. To be honest, even in Birds of Prey, a movie that I didn't like that much, and the sequel does, Suicide Squad, Margot Robbie actually does a fantastic job at portraying this character. But here, I don't know if it's the directing or the script, but it just ain't it for me. She is hot though, I guess, so that's the only thing that matters when it comes to the women characters in DC movies, right? Viola Davis's Amanda Waller is in that same vein as Margot Robbie as well. She is much better in her appearances in later films. Well, I guess just the Suicide Squad and the show Peacemaker, but here it's really not her fault. Same thing with Margot Robbie and even Will Smith. All these actors were just given a weak script, and obviously when they were given a much better script, they performed much better, especially when you have a better director at the helm. But yeah, we're talking about the intros for these characters, and to be honest with you, the intros have the worst pacing. Instead of just doing like really cool montages of all of the things that these characters have done, things that would improve the world building in much smaller ways, the pacing is that of introducing the character, showing their feats, not letting you actually see those acts that they committed, and then showing you a very anecdotal experience or arrest that they had to get into the position that they're in now. In my opinion, you could have left the capture arrest scenes out of it. Just showing the abilities that characters like Captain Boomerang and El Diablo and the rest of the squad would have would just be effective enough. Us knowing that they got arrested by the Flash or Batman is just kind of like okay. And speaking of the Flash and Batman and other characters not in the Suicide Squad, I'm just gonna run through those real quick. It's so apparent to me that nobody who was working on any of the films in the DCEU really knew what the fuck was going on when it came to the world and how well established those characters have been, because Barry here, he seems to be very confident in his abilities, his skills, and his banter with his villains. But then when we see him in later appearances, he's like a fill-in for the Peter Parker type in the MCU. Like, he's very unsure of himself, filled with anxiety, and just kind of goof. Him being as confident as he is for the little amount of screen time that he has just shows me that all of the shit that the director said about, this being canon to Zack Snyder's version of the Justice League, that's why, our films may seem a bit disjointed, is just a lie. They were just co-signing Zack Snyder because they knew if the Snyder Cut was successful, they would get their jobs back and there would be a potential for shit like the director's cut of Suicide Squad, which, hey, all credit where credit's due. This film was edited by a trailer team for some reason, so maybe the movie itself would have been improved had it just been helmed by the director when it came to the finalized product. But the editing doesn't change the script or the acting, so I doubt it. Also, Batman shows up in the intros, Ben Affleck's Batman, and listen, I love Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne. I think aesthetically he is Bruce Wayne. His cadence when he's Bruce Wayne, especially in BVS, reminds me of the animated series Batman. Ben Affleck himself, to me, just embodies Batman physically and his cadence, as opposed to those guys who I felt were lacking in the physical area. Ben Affleck is like a fucking truck in the suit, and you could see it, but his Batman is definitively the worst live action Batman. Yes, I'm putting this Batman below even George Clooney's Batman. Listen, first of all, the Batfleck ain't never pulled out a Batman credit card, okay? But in all seriousness, the reason why I think this Batman sucks is because the idea that this Batman is supposed to be an older, more grizzled Batman who kills people, but for some reason doesn't kill any of his rogues gallery that appear in this movie, including the next person I'm about to talk about, just makes this character a bitch, in my opinion. If you're gonna kill all these henchmen and whatnot, why not also kill people like the Joker, people like Deadshot? It just doesn't make sense to me. At least here, there's a reason why Batman doesn't kill him. Like, sure, this movie does take place, I guess, after Batman versus Superman, because they reference Superman's death and Batman is changed. But the fact that Deadshot was alive at this point means that this Batman sucks so hard that he couldn't kill Deadshot in previous interactions. It just makes Batman look kind of like a goof. He also punches women in this universe, which is hilarious. And then we get to the Joker. The Joker shows up in Harley Quinn's intro, and to be quite honest with you, what? Why would we even do this? Jared Leto is arguably one of the worst actors of all time. I don't care that he has an Oscar. Those awards mean nothing to me. He is terrible. He comes off as Jared Leto in all of his movies, and when it comes to Joker and Suicide Squad, and even his reappearance in Zack Snyder's Justice League,
I'm your best friend. Besides, who's gonna give you a reach around?
the movie is written with flashbacks about him that are badly acted to build the lore between him and Harley Quinn, and to be quite honest with you, he comes off as like a lame Looney Tunes character. I'm not saying that Joker has to be the same and everything, but I mean, you compare Jack Nicholson's Joker to Heath Ledger's Joker, and even to Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, even Cesar Romero's Joker. All of these guys have different energy, and they take on different aspects of the Joker character in complete unique ways. Unfortunately, this Joker just comes off like a beta, and I hate to use the red pill talking points when discussing a comic book character.
The only common denominator in all this chaos is you.
Trust and believe. I've been proposed to several times. I feel the same.
That's not a real. That did not make your case any better. That didn't make it any better, man. That made it absolutely worse.
But seriously, there's no way you can tell me that this Joker is the Joker that's outsmarting Batman, is his worst nemesis, and killed Robin, and has caused Batman so much strife that Batman is now willing to kill people. This Joker is an embarrassment. He is also just like the physical epitome of David Ayer's stereotypes, the director of this movie. He has like these tattoos to make him look like a gangbanger on his face. He walks around in expensive and extravagant outfits, and to be honest with you, when I saw the trailer and I saw people at the time criticizing how this movie looked and was coming off, I was like, hey, let's give it a chance. Maybe this edgy Joker cringe lord shit is a part of the character. But no, a lot of that just came from the director explaining like, oh, he wears false teeth because Batman punched his teeth out. Like, okay, sure, dude, whatever. The dialogue between Amanda Waller and the government agents that she's appealing to about Task Force X have kind of, just listen to this.
You want to put our national security in the hands of witches, gangbangers, and crocodiles.
Don't forget about the Joker's girlfriend.
These are villains, Amanda. What makes you think you could control them?
Yeah, the premise and members of this team, Task Force X, is also incredibly dumb. If you need to see valid Suicide Squad stories, to me, the most valid Suicide Squad story in film form, at least outside of the sequel / reboot to this movie, it would be in Batman Assault on Arkham. It perfectly exemplifies why a team like this would exist, why members like Harley Quinn would be valuable, why you would also need people with extravagant superpowers, not just a bunch of people who could fight really good and throw things in a nice way. I mean, sure, Captain Boomerang is also in that movie, but even then, there's use for all of these characters. It's a heist movie. It is about a bunch of people doing something that if they get caught, it's over for them. They are vulnerable enough to where you understand why they are doing this and why they are selected for the job. Whereas here, I mean, dude, what are we doing? We got people like Captain Boomerang and Slipknot on the team when we're dealing with demons and monsters. If the entire premise of the team is predicated on the fact of, whoa, what if Superman is evil? Or what if the next Superman that comes isn't as nice as the one that we had? What are we gonna do? What the fuck are we gonna do when we have Harley Quinn on the team? Hell, even Deadshot. I actually like that in the sequel, they explain the fact that motherfucker Bloodsport took Superman out for a little bit by shooting him with a kryptonite bullet. That level of a feat can indeed indicate that dude might be skilled enough to take on people way stronger than him, despite the fact that he's just a human. And it makes sense. Here, I promise you right now, none of these people, including Enchantress, can do anything to someone even half of the level of Superman. They all have issues with Batman. The idea that this is the team that could help with an evil Superman is incredibly stupid. I did think this part was funny though.
Please don't touch me. Please don't touch me.
We also get introduced to Rick Flag, and Rick Flag is just dumb and boring here. Every time there's a hint of character for this guy, it's ruined in the same scene.
And her grades start slipping, I need you to white people that thing. You know how y'all do.
Oh, yeah.
All right? Okay. Now, that's my price, but I'm concerned because I don't see nobody writing shit down.
You're in no position to make any demands.
Oh.
He also has a forced mini rivalry arc with Willshot, and it's so forced and the resolution is so unearned. If there was an indication that Deadshot at some point in his previous life was someone who abandoned maybe his squad mates in the military or a special force unit, and Rick Flag uses that to motivate him or to, just make him upset, so there's actual tension between them, it makes the scene where Deadshot, goes off and kills all the minions later mean a lot more, showing that he's willing to step up and defend his team even though it's a bunch of maniacs and a special ops group that's willing to blow his head off his shoulders. We also have Enchantress, and Enchantress is weird, but she kind of quirky though or whatever, so like it's cool, I guess. Her romance with Rick Flag is dog water. It's just there to give Rick Flag, I guess, some sympathy points from the audience and understand his true motivations here when it comes to dealing with the situation that they're in. But to be quite honest with you, I don't care. Also, her brother that helps her out, her her minion, is literally a nothing character. His motivation is literally just to serve his sister and be a boss at the end, so that's it, I guess. We're introduced to my man, award winner Killer Croc. Is just a black dude with eczema. I'm not gonna lie to you. Sorry. I know that may sound a little bit racist, but literally listen to his dialogue.
Not me, shorty. I'm beautiful.
But he's honestly one of my favorite characters in this movie because from the first time I saw this movie to the last time I saw it, I laugh out loud every time he says something. Next up is El Diablo, and he's dumb. I hate him. We're going to talk about him later, so don't worry about it. And we're almost 30 minutes into the movie at this point in my notes, and we still haven't actually met the other half of the team, like Captain Boomerang and Slipknot and Katana, who's not actually in the squad. She's just there for a little bit, but we'll get there. I actually thought the guard in this movie, played by the dude from Neighbors, was funny, and I kind of wish he was in the movie more. Maybe he should have been Rick Flag, that type of dichotomy of this dude being a scummy, corrupted, funny special forces leader who is also actually hilarious and a bit of a chicken shit would have been pretty cool. But no, this character, he offers a ton of things, but then it's just kind of like, oh, I guess he's gone. It's revealed that Amanda Waller has control of Enchantress because she has her heart, so thusly that means Enchantress must listen to her, because if she doesn't, Amanda will stab it a bunch of times with a spork. And it's weird because she just doesn't actually have control over Enchantress. Even after stabbing up the heart, Enchantress escapes and revives her brother, and they attack the city. It makes Amanda Waller look incredibly stupid, especially when this character, who is historically shown to be, if not on the same level of Batman when it comes to preparedness, the notch right below it. And here, as opposed to her just being undermined by her colleagues like how she is in the sequel, something that's truly out of her control, she's just shown to be a fucking moron this entire movie, and I really just don't like it. Now, if you know the twist, I guess, of this movie, you'd know that by the time the squad gets to the city and we finally get our first head getting blown off, aka Slipknot. Oh yeah, I didn't even talk about that dude. The man who can climb anything dies immediately in this movie. Seriously, I don't even know why this guy would be considered a supervillain, let alone a villain to recruit on Task Force X. Like I said, Amanda Waller's such a fucking idiot in this movie to me that when Slipknot dies, she actually looks disappointed, and I'd have to wonder, Why? I guess maybe he would have climbed the building she was in faster, but who gives a fuck? He literally had no other ascertainable skills. Did I use that word correctly? I hope I did. It sounded like it was the right thing to say there. Also, when the squad finally meet up before they reach the city, I guess no one gives a fuck that there's a giant crocodile nigga with eczema, by the way. Like, everyone's just looking at him like, hey, dude, what's up? Like, don't you think this is the time to develop and establish characters by showing their reactions to one another? Like, Captain Boomerang should be scared shitless that he's standing next to Killer Croc right now. But no, everyone's just kind of chill. The girl from The Boys is here playing Katana, the one that I mentioned earlier, and she's apparently Rick Flag's personal bodyguard, despite the fact that she doesn't use any projectile weapons. In fact, her one weapon is a katana that traps the souls of her victims. Yeah, the movie doesn't care either, so don't worry about it. After they crash land in the city, the squad actually comes across the minions in this film, the enemies, the basic variant types that they'll have to fight, and they're the doo-doo people. Yeah, no, I'm not kidding. They look like doo-doo with like blinking bubbles all over them, which for some reason the squad engage with to help Flag, which, to be honest with you, wouldn't it make sense for Flag to just die here? Why is it that if Flag dies, they all die? Like, what, is Flag just gonna reach for his wrist and say, fuck you guys for not helping me? Or is it like when he dies, the bombs in their necks will explode? Because to be quite honest with you, that doesn't help Waller at all. So they could have just let him get snatched up here. Willshot's triumphant moment is a cool scene to watch, but like I said, I really don't understand its place in the story. It's like they really just cut out a portion of his backstory in which he was someone who could be considered a coward or someone who would run away from a fight and abandon his teammates, like Flag was alluding to, and they either didn't film it because Will Smith didn't want to, or they cut it out for budget reasons or time reasons, whatever it is. And to be honest, if that's the case, that's the one thing that you probably shouldn't have cut out in this movie, because now this moment where he's shooting the doo-doo people in slow motion is just like I guess it's cool. By this moment in the movie, there's just so many scenes, so many quick reaction shots where it's like, oh, that was kind of weird, or oh, this is kind of quirky a little bit, that the filmmakers and Warner Brothers, the editors, whoever, just thought were fucking hilarious because the film is just laid with them. It's gross. Eventually, we move on and we're getting closer to the thing that Team Task Force X has to retrieve, and the minions, the doo-doo minions, attack them again, and for some reason they keep fixating on Rick Flag. It's revealed later why they do that, but even then it's just kind of stupid. And the team decides they gotta protect Rick Flag for the reason I mentioned earlier. If he dies, we all die, which really isn't established at any point in this movie. If it is, please let me know, because I feel like a maniac. There's the whole protect the flag scene, and to be quite honest with you, that would have been a cool thing if we saw that the minions were actually trying to take his armband and blow up the Suicide Squad, because they understand that this is the team that could stop them, but they don't do that. In fact, when they do the protect the flag scene, it literally ends right after it. Willshot eventually teases El Diablo into finally doing something, because in every scene thus far, every action scene, he's just like, yeah, I don't want to, you guys don't want to see that side of me, it's very dangerous, blah blah blah. Willshot eggs him on, and eventually he proves why him and Willshot are the only members on the team worth a damn. Actually, let me not say that. I have to give credit to Academy Award winner Killer Croc, who is very useful for the aquatic mission later on. Eventually they get to the target point, and it's revealed that the person of interest is actually Amanda Waller. When I saw this in the movies, this kind of confused me, considering, like how I said, the film at the beginning was edited as Amanda Waller is trying to sell this team to the government to get funding and support for it. She does, and the fact that she does comes from the fact that she's stuck in the city, but the way it's filmed, it just feels like she gets approval for it and they get sent out. The editing really made it just seem like, oh, I mean, I guess, fine. I guess you gotta save her. Listen, I'm gonna go with it because it's a movie and I have no choice. This isn't a Telltale game where you can make choices and then it still ends up the same at the end for most people. This is a movie. I have no choice here. I just have to go with it. And when I watched it the first time, I went with it, but at that point, I was already checked out. But the reveal to Will Shot and the rest of the Suicide Squad and their respective reactions to this honestly makes no sense. In fact, they should all be like, oh, this all makes sense now while we're here dealing with all this dangerous, crazy shit, even though we're underprepared. That line of dialogue from anyone, Harley, Boomerang, Killer Croc, Academy Award winner Killer Croc, would be incredibly logical and would allow me as a viewer to relate to this team a bit more, but instead they're shocked and disappointed and betrayed. As per usual, Academy Award winner Killer Croc saves the day.
I like her.
Now, this entire time, Joker has been meddling with the head security guard that I mentioned earlier at the prison that Harley Quinn was at prior to her being recruited for Task Force X. And it turns out that after striking a deal with that guard and I think killing him because we don't see that guy anymore, he steals the helicopter that was sent to pick up Amanda Waller and the rest of Task Force X. He takes it and shoots at a bunch of people, and Harley Quinn, who was actually in contact with him due to the corrupt guard, escapes. This is where it gets even more hilarious to me, because for some reason Amanda Waller tells Will Shot to shoot Harley Quinn. He quote unquote misses, and for some reason she doesn't blow his head off. Now, as much as I'll say Will Smith is probably the best actor in this movie in terms of him entertaining me, and I wouldn't have wanted him to die at this point because that means another 45 minutes of this film without any other entertaining actor other than Academy Award winner Killer Croc, of course. He misses and she just doesn't kill him for some reason. I felt like if she had put Captain Boomerang up to it to cut the wire and he said he missed and then she blew his head off, that would have not only added to the character of Captain Boomerang but to the threat of the whole bomb in the neck thing to, you know, Amanda Waller's credit. But no, we don't get that at all. Everyone is just like, oh, good job, Will Shot, right in front of Amanda Waller. And this is a character who's is literally not getting what she wants and blowing people's heads up. Here it's just, oh well, fuck you, Will Shot, or whatever. Alright, let's leave. Like, what? Eventually Joker's helo gets shot down, if I remember correctly, or it's like hit by the demon girl's sister. I mean, I don't care at this point. The helicopter's falling and Joker saves Harley by pushing her out. So Harley is not with Joker anymore and she's back with the squad for some reason. Waller gets into the second helo and she escapes, and you know, the movie's over. Great movie. We say we did what we needed. You know, they got some time taken off of their prison sentences. You know, it's a happy ending. Shots all around. No, not at all. Waller gets in the helo and it's immediately taken down by Big Brother, and she's taken by his goons for some reason, as opposed to just killing her right then and there. By this point, I really wish they had developed some camaraderie with the squad, like Boomerang and Croc have a relationship, or Diablo and award winner Croc have some sort of relationship. But in all honesty, these characters just stand there and stare. You can't really tell how they feel. You could just assume that they're like sad that Harley, you know, potentially died or whatever, but there's no real rapport between any of them, so I'm just feeling like who cares at this point. Harley returns to the group when they get to the ground level and she gets carried by Will Shot for some reason. It's totally not for the shots in the trailer to hint that two hot actors are potentially going to have a romance scene in this film. And listen, I understand that they had relations in the comics and even the cartoon film, but here the romance angle is so friendship adjacent that it's odd that they would even include this moment to me. The squad finds Waller's crashed helo, and Will Shot for some reason finds a top secret binder.
What?
I'm not kidding, it literally says that on the binder. And Flag reveals the whole second half of the mission is actually Enchantress, who's like an all-powerful witch, and the squad says, fuck it, you lied to us, let's go for a drink at the bar. Even Katana for some reason goes to the bar. People say that the bar scene is great and it's arguably the best scene in the movie, and I mean, I guess, but much like the rest of this movie, it's more so just the skeleton of a better scene. It's the bonding between thieves moment, you know, when the characters hit the second act reflect low, and they reflect on how they ended up here and all of the misdeeds that they did and how they don't deserve good things, whatever, but it's all undermined by the fact that it's the only scene with development for any of the characters in this movie, and it fails at accomplishing that. Diablo's backstory isn't sympathetic at all. He's just an angry bozo. Harley's own little speech that she does is just cringe and doesn't make any sense, but once again, award winner Killer Croc comes to save the day.
Not me, shorty. I'm beautiful.
And Flag reveals that he actually had Will Shot's daughter's letters that she's been sending to Belle Reve every day. And my thing is like, why? If you had alluded to the fact that Rick Flag and Will Shot had some sort of history, like, you know, maybe Deadshot was a part of his squad and bailed on Rick Flag, thus giving them a valid rivalry, him even having a relationship with Will Smith's daughter, like an uncle or, you know, a surrogate older brother of some kind, would have made this twist hit. But here, it just really doesn't make sense, because what if Will died throughout any of those events in the film? Would he have just left the letters on his dead body? Would he have blown up Will Smith's head at all throughout this entire movie? It just doesn't make sense. Why would he have those letters? Captain Boomerang finally gets to do something, and it's funny, and that's it. It's one of the few funny on purpose moments that is actually funny. Flag and the squad eventually reconcile and plan on blowing up a charge underneath the Enchantress's base that Flag had left earlier in the movie when Enchantress originally betrayed him and Waller and escaped. Award winner Croc finally has a standout moment and proves his usefulness, like I mentioned earlier, and I guess Boomerang does too by having a surveillance boomerang, I guess, which is hilarious. He only throws like 2 or 3 boomerangs this entire movie, by the way. The other times he uses them as like swords or knives, which is funny, but whatever, I guess. Mind you, this entire time, by the way, Waller is still alive. It turns out Enchantress is like reading her mind for like secret government information, I guess, to like attack people and kill millions, or I don't know. She over there shimmying though. Also, is this bitch rhyming?
I've been waiting for you all night. Step out of the shadows, I won't fight.
That's called motherfucking bars, nigga. You know nothing about that.
She forces the squad, once they eventually reach her base, to have like these desirable dreamscapes, but at this point I realize that too many members are still alive. The entire point of this, like I said earlier, is to prove how expendable these people are, and eventually you learn that they're much more than just crazy psychopathic villains. They have depth to them, so then when they do die, the expendable nature turns into you feeling sympathy and actually feeling bad, wondering if those characters could have redeemed themselves and actually gotten help. But you know, they're all still alive. I guess they were too scared to kill these characters. They expected we were gonna get some toys out of Captain Boomerang and his little unicorn fetish thing, I guess, but no, we didn't. Big Brother pops out when the dreamscapes aren't working for them anymore, and Will Shot is putting his fucking dukes up. Nigga, you have guns and explosives. Why the fuck are you putting your arms up like you about to scrap with bro? Like he's 10 feet tall and on fire or something, and you're just like, well, time to fight. Like, alright. Diablo finally redeems himself, and his motivation is to protect his new family? Oh my, get the fuck out of here, dog. This ain't Fast and Furious, and judging by the time of day, it's only been around like 6 hours of bonding time for y'all. This is your new family? Go fuck yourself. He reveals that he also has like this alternate demonic form, and much like the CGI for everything else in this movie, it's literal doo-doo water. And the squad's reaction to him fighting is like the ultimate cringe. Like seriously, it's really bad. He sacrifices himself, so I guess, you know, cool, somebody else died, but it's only been 2 people, and like I said, the novelty of the neck bomb threat could have been utilized here. Like, hey, we need to blow up the bomb underneath Enchantress's base. Why not blow up the bomb in Diablo's neck while he's right over it so we could destroy this whole thing? That would have been a cool way of flipping the neck bomb thing on its neck to where it's like, you make the bomb something that has to be utilized for the plans. someone has to sacrifice themselves in some way, and why not Diablo? Also, I have a question. When Diablo is in his demonic form, is the nanite bomb still in his neck? Because if that's the case, from the beginning, he could have just turned into this demon form and left these guys if that was the case. But if it still works in his demon form, he fucking sucks, and his power sucks, and he sucks, and I'm glad he died. Enchantress mourns the loss of her brother and begins fighting the squad, and she loses like a bozo. I hate when magic characters who have like these all-powerful abilities lose to normal people, when it's just like, we have the power of friendship and anime on our side, as opposed to them figuring out a smart way to defeat her. The slow-mo throws in this are hilarious. I love every throw in this scene. It's just hilarious to me. There's a shot after the fight where you see Harley Quinn has been wearing high heels this entire time. You know what? I might have to take it back. She might be powerful enough to take on Superman because she's wearing 6-inch fucking high heels this entire movie, and she's just murking dudes. So hey, you know, maybe I was wrong. Maybe she is worthwhile. Waller is, you know, she walks from behind the whole thing, revealing that she's still alive, and arranges for the squad to have some benefits. Will Shot gets to see his daughter from time to time in person. Harley gets an espresso machine. I guess that's supposed to be funny. And award winner Killer Croc gets BET and a chicken sandwich? You can't tell me this movie's not racist. Eventually, Joker breaks Harley out, and that's it. Movie done. I lied. Actually, there's a slightly mid-credit scene where Ben Affleck shows up again as Bruce Wayne this time. And if you couldn't tell from the beginning of this movie with the appearances of Flash, Joker, and Batman that the DCEU was barely attended to when it came to world building and its overarching plot, this scene will immediately convince you. There's no logic behind this scene, considering Batman already has information on the potential Justice League members he got from the Lex Luthor files. But also, who the fuck is Waller needing protection from that Batman can help her with? I really thought they were alluding to maybe the League of Assassins or the Court of Owls, or maybe somebody else that Batman has interacted with in his history, but we never get back to that storyline. I guess Batman just protected Waller and everything works out. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some cool looking shots, and here's a quick montage of them. Yeah, that was it. The Enchantress hand shit was badass. Like, that's the one thing that's always stuck out to me since I saw this movie for the first time, to be honest. I gotta give credit where credit's due. Will Shot's costume is pretty badass for the most part. It's a cool live action take on the, you know, the comic look. I love the mask. I love the little eye scouter thing that he has. It's pretty cool. Honestly, what more could be said about this movie? It comes off as if it was made with AI, because the plot lines, the scenes, the dialogue, and the character motivations are either just unfinished, underdeveloped, or completely fucked up by the editing. All in all, the entire film is just a mishmash of dumb shit, and I would say that the fact that this movie was even made could be considered a miracle, but to be quite honest with you, I can barely call this a movie. It is one of the most confusing watches for me, because a lot of the issues and storylines and plot lines that don't make sense could have easily been fixed by replacing these characters with other characters, or just straight up adapting the cartoon film. Because in all honesty, I didn't love Assault on Arkham, but I did love the role of the Suicide Squad in that movie and why those members were selected and what the mission was. This film is so high stakes for a bunch of fucking loser enemy types that it really makes no sense. They could have had it be something that escalates to world ending, but having it be something as important as retrieving Amanda Waller in the middle of the end of the world doesn't make sense, when Batman probably could have done this on his dolly. Hell, even Flash. Where the fuck are the other good guys in this world to where that the world is about to fucking end and none of them show up? Like, we could have at least had Batman at the end of the fight be like, oh, you guys handled it, or something. Or maybe Batman, much like an Assault on Arkham, is on his own mission in the city and the Suicide Squad has to deal with him. But no, everyone's dumb. The movie itself is dumb. David Ayer wants to release his version of the film, and like I said, unless you just completely change the dialogue and the overall plot line, it'll just be a longer, dumber version of the original film, much like Snyder Cut of Justice League. Good night, everybody. See you in the next video. Bye bye.